Welcome to the Wireless LAN News Desk on July 20th, 2018. My name is Tom Carpenter. I'm the CTO at CWNP. And this week, there are four things I want to talk about in the news. First of all, there's a report called Global Industrial Wireless LAN Market 2017 to 2021. And they mention, first of all, key vendors, Alcatel-Lucent, Cisco Systems, Dell, Huawei Technologies, and Siemens. But the interesting thing is that they're saying the global industrial wireless LAN market is to grow at a CAGR of 6.38% during the period of 2017 to 2021. So this is focusing specifically on the wireless LAN market in industrial implementations. So we're talking about everything from the Internet of Things to scanner access to any other type of device access used in an industrial environment. Now, the interesting thing to note is the expectation that 802.1x is going to impact this, as well as the fact that we already have dual radio technology and cloud-based technologies, all of these things coming together so that we have not only the ability to implement our wireless LAN, but the ability to gather metrics about that wireless LAN in a central repository, which may be cloud-based. Of course, it can be on-site as well, but the key here is to understand that the evolution of Wi-Fi implementation and analysis is what's leading to some of this growth. Now, it's also interesting to note that they're giving credit to the emergence of Industry 4.0. This is also called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The concept here is really centered around the Internet of Things and the interconnectivity of everything. Internet of Things, Internet of People, all of this interconnectivity that's taking place. And the wireless LAN is a big part of this. Now, it's interesting to note that the reality here is wireless LAN is benefiting from this. So, and many people have said, well, 5G is coming and it's going to be the new Internet of Things thing. Well, let's look at another key piece of news here that impacts this, and that is the upcoming 802.11ax represents significant selling point for Wi-Fi gear vendors, says Global Data. So another report says that 802.11ax is going to be a big benefit to Wi-Fi gear vendors. Why is that? The reason is revealed toward the end of this little article about the report in a subtle statement, where it says, Byrne concludes, however, once the cost curve comes down, 802.11ax Wi-Fi has the potential to deliver 5G-like user experiences at a fraction of the cost of similar cellular gear. And this is something that we've been seeing consistently. It goes on to say the ability to deploy Wi-Fi access points at significantly lower cost than 5G small cell offerings similar performance characteristics could represent a significant selling point for Wi-Fi gear vendors. So we've seen this in other reports in the news desk over the last couple of months that the studies that are out are showing that it's less expensive to implement 802.11ax for the capabilities that are offered in similarity between it and 5G than it is to implement 5G. And so the big factor there is a cost factor. If you're doing a large-scale industrial deployment in a multi-location organization with many manufacturing environments, the cost factor could be significantly different with 802.11ax. Now, the expectation is that the cost will come down through 2022, and we're really going to see 11ax begin to pick up more in 2 or 3 years than we are immediately. But what this is saying is Wi-Fi is not going anywhere, and that's what the research continues to tell us on a very regular basis. So the first two pieces of news today is that the industrial wireless LAN market's expected to grow by more than 6% per year, and that 802.11ax is part of this, and that it is likely to be less expensive than 5G in the long run. Now, the third piece of news, cord cutting continues to gather steam in enterprises as employees become increasingly mobile. So a new report released by IHS Markit is telling us that nearly half of employees will use Wi-Fi exclusively to access company networks by 2020. So Wi-Fi is continuing to grow over the next 2 years from that we see. Now, interestingly, some of the highlights. Tablets are the #1 type of device new to the network over the next year, followed closely by phones, primarily mobile. Over a quarter of respondents plan to connect Internet of Things devices to the network. So we're talking about 25 to 30% of respondents dealing with Internet of Things. Tablets are the big driver in the coming year, but they're the big new driver. Notice, it doesn't mean they'll be the majority. Phones will probably continue to be the majority, but we are adding tablets as well. Cloud apps have become the number 3 Wi-Fi traffic contributor, driven by new IT architectures and adoption of public cloud services and devices that rely on cloud connectivity for full functionality. So this kind of ties back to our global industrial wireless LAN market story. And we see here it's not just about the Wi-Fi analytics, but the general cloud apps that make it so that Wi-Fi is appealing in conjunction with 5G and LTE and other connectivity types for when we get off the Wi-Fi network. Cloud apps are beneficial because they're just there, regardless of what my layer 1 and layer 2 is. That part really doesn't matter. Even layer 3, where am I getting my IP from? It really doesn't matter if I'm using apps in the cloud. 77% of new access point deployments will be based on the forthcoming 802.11ax standard. So this is an interesting study. 77% of new deployments. So many people are either delaying until the 11ax devices come along, or they're using some of these pre-ratified devices in these projects. 77%, at least of those surveyed here. Of course, Cisco is still perceived as the top wireless LAN manufacturer, followed by HP Aruba, which has made big leaps because HP acquired Aruba. So you join those two companies together, it has jumped forward, but Cisco is still by and large the largest vendor. So that's not surprising to any of us familiar with the wireless LAN industry. So very interesting to note some of the information from these studies out in this past week. Okay, the final thing for the news desk today, a little bit of humor. The quietest town in America with no Wi-Fi or cell service is just a 130-mile trip away, in this case from Lynchburg, Virginia. That's the home of the news station reporting this service, which is ABC 13 WSET, Lynchburg, Danville, and Roanoke. Okay, so what is this all about? Well, you think you've had trouble deploying Wi-Fi. What if you were in the quiet zone? What if you were in Green Bank, West Virginia? In Green Bank, West Virginia, this is the location of the Green Bank Observatory. And the Green Bank Observatory does not allow any Wi-Fi or cellular activity around the observatory for about 10 miles. This is because they're listening to radio signals from outer space, trying to detect extraterrestrial life, but also looking at electromagnetic energy and other signals that come in from space, and they need to avoid interference. To such an extent that on the premises of the actual antennas and towers, they only allow diesel vehicles because the spark plugs in regular gasoline vehicles cause too many emissions. And they've even planted pine trees all the way around the facility to try to absorb and block some of the emissions of cars that are just driving by. That's how sensitive their antennas are. So yeah, you can make a pretty sensitive antenna. In fact, they say that 100 watts radiated from 25 trillion miles away can be faintly detected there in Green Bank, West Virginia. So you think you have some tough places to deploy Wi-Fi? Try it in a place where somebody in a black vehicle and a black suit might just knock on your door if you install that Netgear router. Well, hopefully that was interesting to you and a little bit of fun for today in the Wireless LAN News Desk. Don't forget, you can go to conferences.cwnp.com in order to sign up for Wi-Fi Trek this year, which is a very exciting conference that we'll be putting on in October in San Diego. Thank you very much for viewing. If you haven't already, click subscribe below. You can click the bell in order to get alerts when these are uploaded every single week at 1:30 on Fridays. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next week.